Okay, so it turns out running Linux on a Mac is still horrible if you have an M1 processor and you then want to use an experimental kernel. But let's start out. What do you think this is? Any guesses? This graph. Over there?
Yeah, that's the graph you on Obsidian, isn't it?
Exactly. So, let's see. Oh, I can just use this. So, about me, I'm Helene. My GitHub, personal, blah, blah, blah. I'll just go through that. So, what do we want to do? We want to get some users, right? Because let's face it, what is the market share right now? 1%, maybe? I don't know. So how do we get people to use Typst? I have had personal strategies, and they actually did answer. So that's certainly one way of doing it, right? And actually, dear Ferd here got me to maybe get pro. So now I'm putting more pressure on Typst, of course. And there is a source if people want to check that it actually happened. So what I'm trying to establish here is that I have tried several different ways to get new users for Typst, right? The problem with this method is the time complexity is quite bad, right? It takes a long time. There might also be some slight ethical problems / PR, that kind of stuff, doesn't work. And all the boring straight potential users will also be missed out on, right? So we have to go some other routes to try to find some users, right? We can go with what it seems like the company is running on, trying to make like a fancy overleaf competitor. There's a second one that we might not want to like do. Or we could do something with notes, right? So let's start with an axiom, okay? Axiom 0, if S is the set of all existing documents, then the amount of note-style documents is very much greater than the amount of thesis-style documents, okay? Anybody doing astronomy here? Okay, no, okay, yeah. Have you seen that operator before? There. Okay, yeah, because it is an operator that's mostly used by astronomers, and I think just to scale, it's something like in subatomic particle relative to a galaxy. It's that kind of relationship, right? That kind of ratio. But this enables us to have a corollary. That means that the amount of people that were writing notes is far greater than the amount of people that will write thesis-style documents, right? On average at a given time, right? That makes sense. So my hypothesis is that we should probably at least take some kind of a front seat in terms of priority for long-term user growth, because people tend to write more notes than long-term fancy documents, right? So let's look at the external note systems that we have here. And I'm very sorry for the presentation about Notion. Don't look too much at that. But Markdown is probably the main problem here, right? Because Obsidian / Logseq is kind of the main one people know about. How many in here have used Obsidian at some point? Yeah, almost everybody, right? And then we have all the bad and evil stuff. OneNote, I think almost everybody in here has lost data at some point or another. Notion, sorry about that, it's even worse. It's kind of like the worst type of closed source software there is. And Evernote, if that's still a thing. I don't know if the servers are still running. So the actual real competitor would be Markdown. So let's see what it does so well. So obviously linking. Wikilinks is kind of like, at least for me, the most used feature. And also a relatively great way of managing the horrible mess that is Markdown, because Markdown is actually not a very well-defined standard. If any of you have ever wanted to dive into it, there's GitHub Flavor, there's a lot of other ones. The wonderful blog by Carl Voigt has some really nice talking about Markdown and how it should be avoided if at all possible. There's just a slight problem that the internet is running on Markdown, right? And then we also have the great plugin support and obviously the ease of use. That goes without saying. So what happens? We could do something about like Wikilinks. We would need that if we were to focus on that. We would need to implement that. We can do that with regex relatively easily. That shouldn't be that much of a problem. We would need some kind of rendering for quick math, and it's almost as if Typst is kind of the ideal engine to run for this, right? And then we also obviously have the whole thing about an LSP versus like a dedicated program. I'm actually almost done, so I think we'll just do it quickly. And then. The main thing is, an LSP would be nice because we would need the linking, we would need that kind of stuff. The dedicated program might be useful for more uses, so obviously the answer is both. And then I will need the other file. Was that open as well? I can probably fuck up this machine as well, so be careful. Yeah, so, it's on the screen, okay. Yeah, like if anybody wants to use NixOS, you can see how, yeah, this one. It's great because you can fuck it up, as you can see. I still managed to do that. Okay, so this is like a very stupid example of how like a Typst-based node could work. So technically, this is not related at all, but I just want to show an example of how wiki linking would work. So technically, you can actually do constant time matrix multiplication for a given size in constant time if you just pre-compute all the permutations beforehand. And that technically will count as a constant time operation, right? And however, due to the current RAM crisis, it might not be an efficient way of doing it. But the idea here, why I'm showing you this is, we just have simple like wiki linking in a pure file, and it actually still remains somewhat readable, right? So I know some people that are insane enough to run Obsidian without the preview mode, where they just look at the raw source text. And since it's effectively the same situation, that will also work perfectly here. And depending on how you like your type system to work out, it could be done with like just some bash scripting and so on. So I think that is kind of the main idea, that nodes should take a priority if we want more people to use it. And that is more or less the idea. Okay? I had some program on my machine, but it turned out that it would be almost impossible to actually run it, I guess. So that's how it is. Any questions?
More a remark than a question. I just wanted to add that I think Typst is already capturing quite a big market of note-taking, at least in my university. If I look down in front of me in the lecture hall, and of all the people who are potential customers, so are using their computer to take notes, Typst is probably at a like 50% market share, and the rest are mostly people who are taking handwritten notes on their iPad, which I think Typst can't really compete with. So these features would make quality of life for note-taking quite a lot better. I appreciate that. I'm just saying there's, I don't think Obsidian is such a huge competitor, at least in my bubble and spheres. Typst is appreciated quite a bit more.
I think that, like, I would argue that obviously we have no data on either side, it sounds like, in terms of that isn't strictly just happens chance. But I think the worldwide user base in terms of Obsidian and Logseq and the other Markdown competitors is kind of insane. So I obviously don't know how many it is, but like the more the merrier, of course, right?
Yes, I can also second that. In uni, actually, a lot of people, well, not that many, but still some percentage of people do use Typst to, for example, for their homework. I also use Obsidian, and if I just wanted to put out there, since a lot of you seem to be some kind of developers, if anyone wants to do a plugin for Obsidian where you can use Typst notation instead,
there is one, a really good one.
A fully functional one, because I couldn't find it.
It was just accepted a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just accepted a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains it. I looked like a year ago or something.
I don't know, there might be a new one, yeah, so it just uses SVG export. Sadly, but we're waiting for a great HTML export.
Yeah, I just figured that it was with Markdown.
Yeah, so yeah.
I mean, I think also the whole, like, at least I really would have liked to just show you the terminal, of course, but like working in the pure text file, at least for me, is very, very satisfying. So I think Obsidian is kind of unfortunately also turning into Emacs, and like I mean, and it sounds like somebody is agreeing, but like in biology, how everything is said to turn into crabs, I think it's the same situation in that everything will sooner or later turn into Emacs, and then you will have the Vim users and the VS Code users saying that it's not the same, but it will turn into Emacs sooner or later, and I think it's the same thing because how many plugins do you have active on Obsidian? Just like, let's say more than 20? 10? My point is, yeah, I had like 50 at some point. Like, it's a bad idea. I might also be an edge case, but still, I think it will be too bloated very quickly. And I mean, that is also one of the very wonderful things about Typst in that regard. But I'm very happy to hear that there's actually people in real life that use it for uni stuff, because I don't think I've ever seen somebody that actually used it at my university. Yes?
Okay, thank you. Then we will proceed with the next talk, if the next speaker can come, please. Thank you.